Started.
Good morning.
Okay, so yesterday we started to analyze this talk of the previous Rebbe, in which he brings two analogies to explain the role of Chassidus in our lives. First analogy is about pearls, and the second analogy is about coals. When someone goes to look for coals, they need to rely on a director, a manager who tells them where to dig, and they go and they dig, but they can't rely on the director to breathe. They have to breathe themselves. Not breathe. If they don't breathe, they're going to die. And they have to rely on the air that it's above the surface. They have to breathe. They have to breathe themselves, and then they could find the coals that give heat and give light. Other analogy of the pearls, the previous Rebbe doesn't speak at such length about, but he says pearls also, you need to, when you're looking for pearls, you have to get air from above the surface of the water in order to be able to go down deep into the water to get those pearls. So we asked a couple of questions about these analogies. Why do we need two analogies? First of all, what is each analogy presenting to us? Why does the previous Rebbe focus on the analogy of the coals? If Chassidus is compared to both pearls and coals, how come he only discusses in the analog the idea of how the coals give light and warmth, and he does not discuss what the pearls do? He focuses mostly on the analogy of coals, which tells us that it's more important for us to know that Chassidus is compared to coals than that it is compared to pearls. So basically, what we've done so far is we've gone a little deeper to understand why is it that coals are found in the earth and why is it that pearls are found in the ocean. What we've discovered so far was that the idea of earth, an idea of the ocean, represent in Chassidus, they express in Chassidus two different kinds of realities. The ocean and the dry land actually represent two different kinds of realities, both within us and within the world. And this will help us understand the two kinds of different properties that Chassidus has, coals versus pearls. There are two reasons why Hashem gave our generation, or the last generations of exile, the teachings of Chassidus, despite the fact that the previous generations were of a far loftier caliber than we are, yet God chose to give our lower souls this gift. And the reason for this is because Hashem saw that we need it. Hashem saw that because the darkness is getting greater, we need to have this higher kind of gift. And a second reason why Hashem gave us this gift is because in order to prepare for the coming of Mashiach, the Torah says that just like before Shabbos, you're supposed to taste from the foods of Shabbos, so too before Mashiach comes, we're meant to taste, get ready for this revelation. And therefore Hashem gives us in Golus a taste of the future. He gives us the teachings of Chassidus, which are a taste of what we will receive when Mashiach will come. It's a taste of the foods of Shabbos before Shabbos. Friday afternoon, you taste the shalom, you taste the kugel. So now it's Friday afternoon in history, and so Hashem gives us from the food of Shabbos and the food of the future.
Is it also possible that the previous generations were equivalent to Esav, and if they got the bracha, they would have shattered?
Zev, you and I know each other. If anyone's compared to Esav, it wouldn't be the previous generations. So that's why I think the answer that the Rebbe gives is more relevant to understanding our generation versus previous generations. But there is a beautiful teaching, the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe says, as Mashiach will come, Hashem will remove the heart of stone from your flesh. The Alter Rebbe said, it doesn't say the brain of stone, it says the heart of stone. Because there's something that we can do in exile as well. We're able to remove the brain of stone, which means we're able to get some kind of understanding of the truth of Hashem in Golus before Mashiach comes. We don't have to wait for Mashiach to remove the blockhead, the brain of stone. We're able to learn a chapter of Tanya and to get some insight into the truth and to have some little bit of real reverence for Hashem before Mashiach comes. That's the idea of removing the brain of stone. That's something we could do ourselves. Famous story at Tzemach Tzedek, that someone asked Tzemach Tzedek, what's the point of teaching Chassidus now in exile when we don't really understand what we're really learning? I mean, all these concepts are beyond us. Tzemach Tzedek said the point is for the aha. What do you mean the aha? You're a conversation between two people and they're discussing something. You don't really know what they're discussing. Then you discover what the subject matter is. Now I get it. Before, you heard the generalities, you heard some details of buy, sell, 1 million, 2 million, China. So in a similar way, we're discussing a lot of deeper inyanim in Chassidus during the time of the exile, deeper concepts in Chassidus. But when Mashiach will come, we'll say, that's
Don't take it
That's
personal that nobody knows what you're talking about each morning, Rabbi.
We're up to the morning of the Geula, Reb Zev. And Mashiach
Amen.
comes. That's it. There's Atzilus. We learned about you for a long time. It's great to visit you. So to understand exactly what the analogies are of coals versus pearls, let's understand a little bit more about what the dry land is and what the ocean is. The ocean is a place where all the contents of the ocean are covered by the ocean. The ocean isn't just a place where the creatures of the ocean reside. It says in the Torah that all the creatures of the ocean were created from the ocean. All the creatures of dry land were created from dry land. But there's a difference between our relationship to our source, to dry land, to the earth, and the relationship of the fish and all the creatures of the ocean to the ocean. The difference is the creatures of the ocean are consistently living and breathing from their source. They know about that they need their source to exist, and they're always submerged, unless they're amphibious, within their source. Versus the creatures of dry land, although we do need bread to support ourselves, we do need the earth to support our lifestyle, to support our life, but we are outside of our source, and we don't feel any connection to where we came from. So there are souls and angels in a higher world, which is called a hidden world. The reason it's called a hidden world is not because it's hidden from our eyes, it's because the fact that it has an identity unto itself is hidden from these souls and angels themselves. The souls and angels themselves don't feel, hey, my name is Zeb, my name is Dr. Bressman. They don't feel that. They feel there's the Eivishter. And the Eivishter's talking to you, yeah, he's talking to me. They don't feel their own identity because they feel that godly energy that animates them more than they feel themselves. You ever have an experience that you're just like so overwhelmed you forget that you're there? The souls and angels are in the presence of Hashem. They feel their divine energy that's constantly animating and creating them the same way God is creating us, but they feel it. And therefore, they're called hidden worlds. The world in them is hidden. The fact that there's a world, the fact there's an existence is hidden. What's revealed to them is the truth. Just like you look at the ocean, you don't see the fish, you see the ocean. Versus the dry land, you see creatures who have an identity, they feel themselves outside of their source. So to the dry land represents the revealed worlds, an existence which feels that it has identity outside of godliness. So that's the places where the dry land and the ocean represent the hidden worlds and the revealed worlds. The previous Rebbe, that during that talk, although most of what we're learning is what the Rebbe interpreted from the analogy of the previous Rebbe, but the previous Rebbe did mention during this talk the concept of the dry land, the body and soul of Chassidus, the body and soul of Chassidus. So too, the coals and the pearls, just like coals come from the dry land and pearls come from the ocean, they're meant also to unearth within us the water within us, which represents our inner strengths, what's hidden, and the dry land means what is revealed. There's two purposes of Chassidus, as we just said. Chassidus is meant to help us deal with darkness. Chassidus is meant to also prepare us for the chasana, for the simcha with the Eibishter. And because of this, there are two different kinds of energy Chassidus gives, the kol kind of energy and the pearl kind of energy. We'll see now why these two kinds of energy are related to where they come from. Let's go back in the Sikha inside to page 192, the bottom.
Morning, Jonathan.
192, the bottom of column number 1. One of the differences between the two explanations of why Hashem gave us Chassidus is as follows. According to the first reason, that the purpose of Chassidus is to oppose and to protect us against the darkness of the exile. The purpose of Chassidus is for our revealed faculties, which means we, our mind and our heart, are in consistent battle with the animal soul. As the rapper of Bell Harbor, Florida, once shared with me a rap. He has a rap for every chapter in Tanya. Chapter 27, his rap is, there's a war being fought, given some thought, don't get taught, 24 hours a day, there's always a war. So our animal soul and our godly soul are in battle. The koivshim is a goof and nefesh abam is like spekalim ve'eschalke be'elam. Hashem and so says nitlan koyach and take up timis and sasam shama ila afshas gabra cheshachayim. So in order to get inner strength within ourselves to overcome the animal soul, in order to get our inner weapons to overcome the battle of the animal soul, not just to resort to the more revealed and lower soul energies, but to have access and to employ our higher, more sophisticated weaponry, we learn the inner dimension of Torah, which gives us access to the inner dimension of our neshama, which allows us to overcome the darkness of God. So Chassidus is meant to empower us who are fighting with the animal soul, using only our revealed keiches, revealed powers of the soul, and to have access to keiches pnimiyim, to the inner dimension of the soul. So it's all about the battle with the animal soul. It's all about the external. It's about the battle without, with the external energies in us that need an additional reinforcement. So Hashem sends reinforcement. Oh, you guys are down in Golus, there's a war, you guys are getting hit. Let me send you reinforcement. Even the doubled and quadrupled darkness of the last generations. So this explains the expression of doubled and quadrupled. It's not just a difference in number, double darkness, quadruple darkness. There's a darkness, at least you know you're in the dark. And there's a darkness that you think that you're in the daylight. You don't even know what you're missing. So Golus is a place where not only do we not see the truth of the Eibishter, but we think that everything is hunky-dory. Everything is great. So the darkness itself is hidden. So the Chassidus allows us gives us a connection to our inner koyches, our inner strength to overcome the darkness of God. That's one purpose of Chassidus. According to the second explanation, and the purpose of Chassidus is to taste the future. It's not about dealing with the darkness. That happens automatically. Rather, the purpose of Chassidus is to allow us to become one with godliness. Just like on Shabbos, the halacha is now to separate the good from the bad from the good. It's forbidden on Shabbos. By the way, halachically, even the good from the bad using a special tool is forbidden. The only reason why you're allowed to separate the good from the bad with your hands when you're going to eat is because it's considered like eating. But if you use a tool, it's actually biblically forbidden to separate good from the bad on Shabbos as well. Anyway, so Shabbos, separation is forbidden. During the week, you're supposed to separate. You're allowed to separate. So similarly, spiritually, separating the good from the bad means to find the godly energy in the physical things in our lives, to find the hand of Hashem and divine providence in our life, to sift through and see the good from within the bad. That's our role during the week. On Shabbos, Beir is Asr. On Shabbos, we're not allowed to separate. On Shabbos, our role is not about dealing with the animal soul as much as it is bonding with Hashem. Now, as the Alter Rebbe concludes the whole entire book of Tanya with the inner explanation of the two mitzvahs of Zachar and Shamar. The Alter Rebbe says, Shomer means that you should not transgress the Shabbos. Shomer, guard yourself from transgressing the Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe says, just like the Hashem on Shabbos stopped uttering, or he uttered in a higher way, the 10 utterances, so too a Jew on Shabbos should not talk about gashmistic things, not talk about physical things. In the code of Jewish law, the Alter Rebbe says that you shouldn't talk about things which are forbidden to talk about on Shabbos. And Tanya takes this to higher levels. Is why are you talking about physical things on Shabbos? Talk about more holy things. But the mitzvah of Zachar, the positive mitzvah on Shabbos, remember the Shabbos, and spiritually, the Alter Rebbe says, is about davening, it's about learning. Remember the Shabbos means immerse yourself in the spiritual. So Mashiach, Shabbos is just a taste of the coming Mashiach. What's Mashiach about? Mashiach is about becoming one with Hashem, immersing in Elokus, becoming one with Elokus, becoming one with godliness. Hashem will remove the spirit of impurity from the world. So it won't be about pushing away the impurities of the world. It's going to be about bonding with the Eibishter. Mashiach will come. We're not going to be dealing with various Yetzer Mashiach will come. We're going to be rising from strength to strength within the realm of holiness itself. So we're not going to be powered only by when Mashiach will come from the inner dimension of our soul. We're going to be living with the inner dimension of our soul. We're going to be living. Nowadays, we have access to the inner dimension of our soul to empower us to deal with the animal soul. But the focus isn't the inner dimension of the soul. The focus is conquering the animal soul. When Mashiach will come, we're going to experience the inner dimension of the soul itself. Yonatan is shaking his head. What are you talking about? Okay, I'm going to try to explain this. Coming now to the Gula of the Mittler Rebbe. The Gula of the Mittler Rebbe is also associated with the pasuk of Pad B'Shalom. Just like the Alter Rebbe, when he said the pasuk Pad B'Shalom, he was released from prison. So too, the Mittler Rebbe's redemption is also associated with Pad B'Shalom. That's why the 10th of Kislev, we begin the Tilma in the 10th of Kislev with chapter 55, in which we say the pasuk Pad B'Shalom. The pasuk Pad B'Shalom means Hashem redeemed my soul in peace from those who war against me, because the many were with me. So Mittler Rebbe says, in short, that the many with me represents, for whatever reason, not going to get into it now, represents the revelation of Yechidah. That's the revelation of Yechidah means the innermost part of the neshama. So the Mittler Rebbe says, how is it possible that we're talking about a war when you have the innermost part of the neshama? The pasuk says, "You redeem my soul in peace from those who war against me." It means there's a war. If there's a war, when the Yechidah is revealed, there's no war. So why does it say in the Torah, "You redeem my soul in peace from those who war against me"? If the many are with me, if there's a revelation of Yechidah, there's no war. So Mittler Rebbe says, there is revelation of Yechidah, and then there is the power of Yechidah. What does that mean? Let's say you are encountering a war because your entire neshama is in a dormant state. Your animal soul is the guy who is front and center, and he's the guy who's talking. He has a talk. He's running the talk show in your station 24/7. You have to think, says the Mittler Rebbe, you have Yechidah. That's who you really are. Yeah, your animal soul is talking, and it's addressing and it's advertising to yourself about all the glories of the physicality of the world, and that's what you're obsessed with. But you also should stop for a second, says the Mittler Rebbe, and you should think, who are you really? You have a Yechidah, and even though you aren't yet in touch with your Yechidah, and you're not only don't you experience the level of Chaya, which means a love for Hashem beyond logic and reason. You don't feel the Naran. You don't feel the lower energies in the Hashem. You don't feel any love for Hashem in your heart, unfortunately. Says Mittler Rebbe, the way to get out of this is by thinking on who you are. Think that you have a neshama. Think that you're part of Hashem. And therefore, because you are a neshama, you're part of Hashem, and your truth is Yechidah. I am Yechidah. That was once talking about how there was a Farbrengen in Russia, and at the end of the Farbrengen, I'm sure you heard the story, the KGB stops the Hasidim and asks them for their papers, and the whole Farbrengen that they were just coming from was talking about Bittul. So the KGB officers asked them, who's going? The Hasidim answered, Bittul Idiot, Bittul is going. So the KGB officers let them go. So the Rebbe said that even though the KGB officer doesn't know what bittul is, but he still was touched by the truth or whatever that chassid expressed because he was there. In a similar way, the Rebbe says a Jew has to be in a way that yichida is going. Yichida idiot. You shouldn't feel when you're going somewhere that you're just Tom, Dick, and Harry going somewhere. You have to feel that you're yichida. I am yichida. The part of Mashiach in me, the highest part of my neshama, is me. That's who I really am. All other stuff in me isn't really me. That's just external. When I think about that, and it says Mitzvah Rebbe, although there's a big war going on, you'll be redeemed in peace. You'll be able to overcome all obstacles, realizing that you're ready to go into Mesiras Nefesh, realizing that you're ready to die rather than sever your bond with Hashem. That's who you are. That's what Yechidah means. Yechidah means that nothing matters. All that matters is your connection to Hashem. When you realize that, the Rebbe says, you think about that, you're ready to go Mesiras Nefesh, so all the challenges will be easily overcome. You'll be redeemed in peace, although there was just a war. That's what the Rebbe says. That's being powered by Yechidah. That's not revelation of Yechidah. Revelation of Yechidah is more like the story of Rabbi Isha the Masmid. The Frierdiker Rebbe got a letter once. The Frierdiker Rebbe, I think, they found a Frierdiker Rebbe who had fainted after getting this letter. It was a letter describing the passing of Isha the Masmid. Isha the Masmid, during the war, he was in a shul where all the Jews were rounded up and the Nazis burned the shul. And someone managed to escape from the shul after hearing the announcement of Isha the Masmid. Isha the Masmid said that we're going to give our lives to the Eibishter, and we have to make sure that we're not going to give our lives with the intent that we're going to have a great Gan Eden. That's not called Mesiras Nefesh, which is to say the bracha. He said the bracha with him, Al Kiddush Hashem, and we have to mind that we're going to give ourselves for Hashem to be for the Eibishter, not because of some kind of reward. That's someone who's experiencing Yechidah. He wants to give himself over to Hashem. That's experiencing Yechidah. That's revelation of Yechidah. So there is an element of Chassidus which is called kols, and there's an element of Chassidus which is called pearls. There is how Chassidus empowers us, like the kols, and there is what Chassidus is. Chassidus is a diamond. Chassidus is a pearl. So in Galus, the role of Chassidus, as we'll see later, primarily what we need Chassidus for is to deal with what we're encountering in Galus. We need to get power from Chassidus. We need to get the energy from Chassidus. We need to get the fuel to fight the various challenges we have. We need the light and warmth of Chassidus to encounter the challenges we have. But then there is a pearl element of Chassidus. The pearl element of Chassidus is how Chassidus is about bonding with Hashem in a wondrous way. That's what that's what Chassidus really is. I was reading. It's not really relevant. Let's go further. The essence of the neshama is one with the essence of Hashem. A Jew and Hashem are one. So the goal of Chassidus isn't only to allow us to overcome the obstacles. Chassidus is also called a pearl, and its role is to allow us to become one with Hashem. Chassidus gives us a taste of the incredible service that Hashem will have. Mashiach will come. We have a taste of that today. We have a taste of that wondrous unity today. Since the first concept, overcoming darkness, is an absolute need. It's absolute, it's critical. You need this. As the previous Rebbe says in that analogy, without this you could chas v'shalom die. Without breathing, you could die. You need Chassidus to live. That's why Chassidus is compared to coals. Coals give light, coals give warmth. It's a critical need. The first element of Chassidus empowers the battle. Chassidus empowers us to fight the battle. It draws from the inner dimension of the Shema and it empowers the battle. That's compared to coals. That's a critical need. On the other hand, the way Chassidus is connected to the inner dimension of the soul on its own, the experience of the inner dimension of the soul, the revelation in the inner dimension of the soul, not the power of the animals of the inner dimension of the soul, but the experience of the inner dimension of the soul. That is compared to diamonds. It's not so critical for us to have pearls in Golos. Pearls are great to have a taste of how things will be. Mashiach will come in a moment, but it's not something that I need to survive right now. It's something I need to prepare for the future, but I don't need it for this second to survive. Ella It's something that just adorns the person. It's not something that's needed. That's the reason why the main length of the previous Rebbe's talk is about the idea of kols. It doesn't talk about the pearl so much. Why? Because what do we need to know right now? What's pertinent for us right now? What's chiyun beis adam? What's critical is the kol element of chassidus. The fact that chassidus empowers your battle. Everyone follow so far? Everyone still awake? Okay. So there is the way chassidus connects us to the ocean in ourselves, and the chassidus connects to the dry land in ourselves. The dry land, sort of the combat soldiers of chassidus empowers the combat dry land soldiers, the army. It gives us the cold, gives us the warmth, gives us the heat. As we'll see tomorrow, we'll show what that means, the warmth and the heat. But besides, chassidus also adorns us and prepares us for the future. Reb Zev, are you blind? No, he just left. He said, I said it's tomorrow, and I lost him. I guess it wasn't for his ears, but I wanted to tell you right now. I want to tell you that I was reading an account. I shared this in Matzah Shabbos in the story about Shimon HaKofer. Shimon HaKofer was a spy that was sent to the Alter Rebbe to figure out the weak spots among Chassidim and how to Zach came back. How to Zach, glad you came back. Why did you hear this? So Chassidus gives Chassidus addresses. I'm sorry. The Maskilim sent spies to the Alter Rebbe to find out what the weak spots are among Chassidim, to figure out how to share the Haskalah, how to share the Enlightenment movement with Chassidim. So we have a treasure trove. It's an amazing thing. Chassidim found a letter from this guy Shimon, who is called among Chassidim Shimon the heretic, and he describes in detail the Alter Rebbe's court, the Alter Rebbe's children, the grandson Tzemach Tzedek, and how life was in the court, and the niguna that they sang, and the kind of, he goes in such detail, and he has a line there. He says, I saw the Chassidim, they were using these pamphlets before Tanya was printed. They only had these pamphlets of Chassidus. He said he bought one. He bought a pamphlet and he tried to learn it. And the pamphlet he bought had 10 chapters of Tanya, and he got someone to teach it to him, and he's learning it. And he says that he said the Maskilim movement, Enlightenment movement, was very into grammar, and they posed in religious circles as experts of grammar and experts. This part of Torah is important as well, and that's the way they got infiltrated Misnagdisha camps in Vilna. The Shimon HaKofer himself was in discussion with the Vilna Gaon, and he was the leader of many of the schools in Vilna, giving curriculum and sending the top students to Europe to schools of enlightenment. Anyways, but one interesting caveat he says is, when I was learning the chapters of Tanya, I love the grammar and the perfect polished grammar, but some of it, he said, made me laugh. When I learned the part, he says, the wondrous unity the Jew has when he learns Torah. When I learned the part about the spheres, some of it made me laugh. So the reason why I find this funny is because we're learning this, and some of it seems to us something that's, it's not something that we relate to right now. And we're thinking like, we're very realistic, we know what's real, but really we're totally out to lunch. We're like this chas v'shalom. We have no idea what we're dealing with. We're learning the truth of Hashem, and for us, for our dulled ears by indulgence and gashmis, so it sounds to us foreign and strange. But
like the outer kalim of Zah.
Right, the outer kalim of Zah. Like the outer kalim of Zah. Like, what is that? What are you talking about? Are you serious even? But the emphasis is that it's just because we're fagrab, it's because we're coarsened. This is the emes. This is the truth. Chassidus is giving us something, and even the harder parts, the deeper parts of Chassidus that we think are like not relevant to us, they also are critical to animate who we are. There's something in Chassidus that touches the inner dimension of the neshama that, even though you don't really know how it does it, but it opens up a window to your inner koiches, and it empowers your day-to-day fight. Chassidus give the analogy of using gold for a broom. You use gold for a broom, and the broom will still work. You make golden. You get golden shearings, or whatever it's called, and you make a broom out of gold. You can do it. The gold, in a similar way, Chassidus isn't meant for just the animal soul's battle with the godly soul. This is meant to adorn us, prepare for the coming Mashiach. Mashiach will come, will connect to what this is really about, the truth of it, not just the fighting, the fact that it empowers our fight. That's the broom element of it. But for our purposes in the Galus, the Friedrich Rebbe says we need to know more how it's critical. We can't go, a day cannot go by without learning Chassidus, because it's the stuff you need to get through the last moments of the darkness of exile. Anyways, so I want to share today. Great day, Dr. Bressman. Great day, Jonathan. Great day, Menachem Mendel. Great day, Reb Zev. Great day, David. Great day, Reb Berel.